The cobblestones of Horse Guards Parade in London have felt the tread of history for centuries. On a deceptively ordinary Tuesday, they became the stage for a modern parable about respect, consequence, and the untamed force of nature that stands guard in the heart of the city. This is not just a story about horses acting out. It is about the moment when ancient duty meets modern disregard, and the line between a photo opportunity and a life-altering event vanishes in a spray of stone and a flash of iron-shod hoof. The midday sun warmed the pale sand of the parade ground, casting long, disciplined shadows from the iconic twin guardhouses. Tourists swarmed the perimeter, a buzzing hive of languages and smartphone screens. At their stations, the two household cavalry-mounted regiment horses, a pair of immense, jet-black geldings named Sovereign and Valkyrie, were monuments of stillness. Their rider guards, perched stiffly in the saddle, faces obscured by plumed helmets and unwavering focus, were part of the sculpture. To the crowd, it was all a splendid backdrop, a living postcard. A man, mid-40s in a bright polo shirt, weaved through the crowd with his family in tow. "Get closer for the real one," he urged, his voice carrying over the murmur. The signs, the barriers, the very aura of solemnity were, to him, mere suggestions. He ducked under the rope, his wife laughing nervously, their two teenage sons following with phones aloft. They approached Sovereign from behind. The horse's ear, a delicate radar dish, flicked backward. His rider's posture imperceptibly stiffened. "Hey, buddy," the man said, not to the guard but to the animal. He reached out, not to touch the horse, but to pinch the pristine, ceremonial surcoat draped over its hindquarters. "Is this real wool?" He gave a sharp, testing tug. It was a tiny gesture, insignificant to a building, a statue, a pillar. But Sovereign was not a statue. He was a 1,200-pound athlete of war, trained for cannon fire and chaos, whose patience was a thin veneer over a profound instinct for personal space. The tug was an electric shock of disrespect. A deep shudder rippled through the horse's glistening hindquarters. The guard's voice, low and firm, cut through. "Stand back. Now." But the warning was lost in the man's chuckle and the click of his son's camera. The family fanned out, now aiming for Valkyrie. Emboldened by the first transgression, the older son mimed grabbing the horse's ceremonial bridle plume. His mother, trying to one-up the moment, stepped directly into Valkyrie's forward sight line, waving both arms. "Look here, beautiful," she trilled. Valkyrie's head jerked up, the bit jingling. Her eyes, previously soft and dozing, widened, showing a crescent of white. The atmosphere changed. The air, once filled with casual chatter, grew thick and charged. Other tourists began to murmur, some stepping back, sensing a shift in the great creature's energy from stoic to strained. But the family, locked in their game of conquest, remained blissfully, dangerously unaware. They had crossed a line they never saw, treating sovereign beings as props, and the balance of the orderly scene began to fracture. A low rumble, felt more than heard, emanated from Sovereign. It was an equine warning, a pressurized release of breath that spoke of fraying patience. The disrespectful tourist, misinterpreting it as passivity, moved again. This time he stepped boldly to Sovereign's side, within the critical zone of the horse's powerful shoulders and front legs. He turned his back to the animal, handing his phone to his wife. "Quick, get me pretending to hold the reins," he instructed. It was the final provocation. The invasion of space, the dismissive touch, the turn back. It was a cascade of insults in the silent language of the horse. Sovereign's head snaked down, and around his neck a powerful arc. He didn't bite, but he shoved hard. His massive nose connected with the man's shoulder. The effect was not violent, but profoundly corrective. The man yelped, staggering 3 steps forward, the phone clattering to the cobbles. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. The guard's controlled facade broke for a millisecond. His reins tightened, his heels pressed, a hiss command to stand delivered to his mount. But the damage to the delicate equilibrium was done. Startled by Sovereign's movement and the sudden spike of human alarm, Valkyrie reacted. Her training held, but her primal instincts surged. She didn't bolt, but she sidestepped sharply, a mighty dance move of pure nervous power. Her iron-shod hoof, the size of a dinner plate, came down not on the woman, but squarely on the discarded smartphone. The crunch was spectacular, a symphony of shattered glass and plastic. The woman screamed as if she herself had been struck. Chaos, contained but potent, erupted. Valkyrie, now genuinely agitated by the scream and the crunch underfoot, threw her head high, her bridle chiming a frantic alarm. Sovereign, feeling his companion's distress, began to paw at the ground, his hoof scraping loudly on the stone. The two guards were now a portrait of fierce, controlled action. No longer statues, they were warriors managing a crisis. Their voices, sharp and authoritative, cut through the panic. Back! All the way back! The command was not a request. The crowd, finally, comprehending the danger, surged backward as one, a human tide of sudden fear. The family was now isolated in a suddenly vast circle of empty ground. The father was rubbing his shoulder, his face pale. The mother was weeping over the destroyed phone. The sons stood frozen, their bravado replaced by genuine terror, staring up at the two agitated giants whose sides now heaved like bellows. The horses' ears were flat back, their nostrils flared red. This was no longer a photo op. This was a confrontation with a force they could not control. The guards, with exquisite skill and strength, wheeled the horses away, putting their own bodies between the animals and the tourists. The lesson was being administered not by the rulebook, but by the raw, unscripted reaction of nature. The cost so far was a bruised ego and a broken phone. But the incident was far from over. The horses' trust had been violated, their calm shattered. And in their heightened state, the next interaction, the next sudden movement, could turn corrective into catastrophic. The immediate crisis was quelled, but not resolved. The two guards, with synchronized precision, walked their horses in a tight, calming circle, their hands steady on the reins, their voices a continuous, low murmur meant to soothe the great beasts. Sovereign and Valkyrie responded to their riders' training, but the tension thrummed through their bodies. Their sweat was no longer just from the sun. It was the lather of agitation. A ceremonial sergeant, alerted by the commotion, appeared from the guardhouse. His face was a mask of stern authority. He approached the shaken family, who were now being filmed by 100 silent phones. If he stated, his voice icy, have compromised the safety of this post and these animals. You will move behind the barrier. Now, there was no argument. Humiliated and shaking, they complied. The crowd's sentiment had turned. Whispers of serves them right and idiots buzzed in the air. The family shame was public and absolute. But the story wasn't about their shame. It was about the horses. The sergeant assessed Sovereign and Valkyrie. Their ears still flicked erratically. Their eyes were wide, scanning the crowd for further threat. The normal ritual of the changing of the guard was approaching. To have these two key horses in the procession in this state was unthinkably dangerous. A decision was made with military swiftness. They would be withdrawn. Two replacement horses, calm and unscathed by the incident, were readied from the stables within. As Sovereign and Valkyrie were led away, not in triumphant procession, but in quiet, deliberate withdrawal, the crowd fell into a strange, respectful silence. The sight was profoundly different. The power was not in their ceremonial dignity, but in their vulnerable alertness. They were not machines to be switched off. They were sensitive creatures who had been pushed and were now being protected. The disrespectful family, slinking away, missed this poignant lesson. They thought the consequence was a broken phone and public scolding. They did not understand they had triggered a chain of events that would stretch far beyond that afternoon. Back in the storied, quiet stables of the household cavalry, away from the crowds, the real aftermath unfolded. Sovereign and Valkyrie were not simply put in their stalls. They were cared for with the meticulous attention of soldiers for their comrades. Grooms moved slowly, speaking in hushed tones, carefully removing the sweat-dampened ceremonial gear. The horses were sponged down with warm water, their trembling muscles gradually relaxing under gentle hands. A veterinarian checked them over, not for physical injury, but for signs of lasting stress. They were given calming feeds, and their familiar stable hands spent extra hours with them, restoring the sense of security that had been breached. The incident was logged, not as a tourist complaint, but as a security and welfare incident. The family, identified through countless videos already spreading online, would be formally banned from approaching any royal ceremonial site again. But the true consequence was etched in the memory of the horses. For weeks after, Sovereign would be extra wary of sudden movements behind him. Valkyrie would startle at the sound of a shattering drop, a reminder of the phone under her hoof. Their training would help them overcome it, but the innocence of their stoic patience was subtly altered. The story rippled out. It became a case study in briefing sessions for new guards. Remember the Tuesday incident, sergeants would say. The barrier is not a suggestion. It is the line between order and injury. Respect the horse, or the horse will teach you respect. The public footage served as a stark, modern cautionary tale, viewed millions of times, with comments overwhelmingly supporting the guards and the animals. Months later, on a crisp autumn morning, the same parade ground was once again filled with tourists. The rituals proceeded with timeless precision. Among the crowd, a parent pointed to the majestic, immobile horses and leaned down to their child. "See those beautiful horses? We watch from here. They're working, and they're very powerful. We must be quiet and respectful from behind the line." The child nodded, eyes wide with awe, not entitlement. Sovereign and Valkyrie, having worked through their tension with patient care and retraining, stood once more on the sands. They were the same, yet not the same. Their stillness held a new depth, a quiet testament to their experience. They were more than ceremonial ornaments. They were living, feeling guardians whose cooperation was a gift, not a given. The disrespectful tourist had bargained for a daring story and a photo. What they got was a costly, humbling lesson in consequence. And what the world received was a powerful reminder that behind the pageantry and the polish stand creatures of spirit and strength, deserving of a space that is not just physical, but profoundly respectful. The line is there for a reason. Some learn it from a sign. Others from the unforgettable shift in the air when a sovereign creature decides enough is enough.